Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. And we have Anthony. This is the 10th interview. So, congratulations to us. Lorenzo, come and say hello, our techie guy. And thank you for being a special guest on our 10th interview. Welcome.
This is awesome. Congratulations. It's great. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
So, usually I start with how I know the guest. So I have a kind of cool list. I think not too long, but the first thing I think we have a little bit of a special relationship because we share the same music director, Jaap van Sweden. So once in a while we look over each other's shoulders and say, "Oh, is there some concerto coming up or some tricky solo in a symphony?" And like, "Oh, I better start practicing or look at that." So that's kind of a very special uh, side to us. We've also been at one point principal clarinet of the mainly Mozart Orchestra in San Diego, right?
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
and I guess the first time we met live was literally exactly 3 years ago in Shanghai, and we were trying some equipment and stuff, and I introduced you to some barrels that Mr. Sato in Tokyo makes, and you quite like it, so I chose them. Then you got back to me and said all your students are nagging you, and so we've sent a bunch over that way. So I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Sato for all his great contributions. But finally, I have kind of a special place in your heart, in my heart, that I'm not sure you know about. When I was quite young, when I was 14, my father passed away, and I was a student at a kind of a neighborhood music school called the Hoff Barthelson Music School outside of New York in Scarsdale. And I went back to visit about 6 years ago, and they said, "Oh, Anthony McGill's coming over to give a master class." So I'll always remember you for that. You might think it's a small thing, but for me, it's a big thing.
I didn't know that. That's a really, really nice story. I had no
Yeah,
idea.
they gave me a full scholarship for 4 years, and they became my second family, my kind of place to go. So I was really happy. So I have this very uh, hard to follow way of connecting things. So just bear with me because I like to do
Oh,
this.
this is great.
You and your brother, when you were kids, were on the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood, right?
Yeah, we were.
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember I've become fascinated with Mr. Rogers, and I saw him on YouTube collect an award, a TV award, and I remember very humbly. I don't know if you saw this same clip. The first thing he says is, "Everyone, just take 10 seconds out to think about who sort of contributed to who you are today." Have you ever seen that clip?
I haven't. No.
Okay. And all of a sudden, he counts down 10 seconds, and the entire audience just literally are bawling their eyes out, thinking about whatever, passed on mentors, parents, whatever it was. So I'm really sorry. In today's world, everyone's on a very negative page. So I'm going to start out on a positive page. So I just told you who I thought of for those 10 seconds. That was the music school. Okay. So if Mr. Rogers asked you to give 10 seconds, I know there's been a lot of people who've contributed to your success, but is there someone or a body or something that you would that you'd have to shout out to and just say, "No, what they really did for me has gotten me to where I am today"?
Yeah, that's really easy for people who've known me a long time, like John Ye. What's up, John? Like my family, my parents are like they're like it's like very easy for me. Nothing would have happened. Well, something would have happened in my life, but I wouldn't be where I am today without my parents. And I can elaborate on that if you want, or not. But
Just a
they're
little bit,
just
sure. Yeah.
yeah, they're amazing people. I think talk about starting on a positive note. That was like the story of our childhood. I think it's just they really believed in kind of really extreme positivity, like in the face of all odds. just always be positive, always do the right thing, and work really hard. So it was a couple different things, but they taught us, they really believed in that. And without them, none of this would have been possible.
Great. So why don't we just dive right in then? Okay. I've asked Anthony's permission to breach privacy with him. So I'm right now the world is in disarray for many different reasons. But at one point we were calling this quarantine lockdown, and now as the world is everything's sort of changing in every city in every part of the world. So we're just going to call this COVID period for the purposes of this interview. So at the beginning of this, less than 3 months ago, we had a little chat. I said, "How are you doing? How are you holding up?" And this was your COVID period. This was your big moment. So, hey, Andy, it's great to hear from you. We're doing okay over here. I'm teaching all by video and starting to get into it. I got a couple of new mics that I'm trying out, and it helps a bunch. How are you doing over there? I hope well. It's all crazy, but we're adapting as best we can. Lots of folks not doing so well, and I'm grateful for what I have for sure. Please be well, happy, and healthy, man. Okay. Now, I think it's fair to say your COVID period has changed a little bit from just worrying about which mic to buy. So why don't we just dive right in and just lay it on us for a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really wild to think about how much time has passed actually, and how at first, in that period, it was feels like years ago, actually, at the beginning, and how it's also gone by really quickly. The time has just flown by as well, has gone by really slowly.
It's less than 3 months ago when we had this conversation, but it seems like it was, a decade ago or something.
It really does. And to be honest with you, what date was that? Did you say? What was the date on that?
Yeah,
April.
April 14th.
Yeah, that was still very early on, and I think that period was still kind of like very scary for me. It was very like the whole, of course, the microphone thing. That's what I was kind of ordering all these things to try to get better at the sound, for lessons. And I was still teaching for a while there and kind of trying to focus on that. But it was very scary. I felt very, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen with, of course, with the orchestra or with work or with my health. I was especially scared of that. I mean, I'll reveal to some folks out there, like I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac, like not like extremely so, but I was really worried, about just my health, like everybody was, but this was pretty as an extreme thing for me. 'Cause, I always like kind of think about that stuff anyway, my health and stuff, and my family and my parents live in a different state and different city, so there was a lot of concern there. I mean, and then to like think about how the transition happened from I was really busy with the teaching, which was helping me thrive actually, and I kind of mentioned that, and that actually helped me kind of deal with the just drop off of the orchestra. That was kind of a big shock. But talking to my students every week and staying in touch with them helped me like really survive that first month or so. And from there, if fast forward, just a couple months to what's been going on here in the States, just generally, and also all the stuff I've been doing online. At the beginning of the whole thing, I didn't even really, and I still think it's actually hard to do all this online stuff, like the interviews, the playing online, all of this stuff is actually really stressful for me. That's what's really interesting about how the last month has developed as far as just being really actively online, doing all this stuff, is that at first it was very uncomfortable, and so now it's still uncomfortable, and yet I still feel I'm getting some like real satisfaction out of it.
Right. So let's get more specific. So I mean, obviously there was some tragic, racial incidents and so forth, and what did you do with that?
Yeah.
Talk about your
So
movement. Talk about your movement.
yeah, I'll talk about it. Yeah. This was a really interesting thing because just as I was getting accustomed to kind of the lifestyle of kind of being at home and being with my family and just kind of enjoying that and being comfortable and kind of calm, all of these incidents started happening, at least being happening during the COVID period, being broadcast of people being murdered and harassed and everything else. And um, and that kind of like really invoked a ton of emotion out of me that to try to do something because we hadn't been moving around very much and we've been on lockdown. So I woke up one morning at like 5 in the morning and I started writing. And sometimes I do this, I take notes on my phone about my thoughts. Sometimes I don't sleep very well. And so I wake up and I write down my thoughts, some for just to have the ideas there, some to like make sure I do something that I'm supposed to do later in the day. But this one was started the statement that I wrote with my America the Beautiful video. That the words came out of my head first before I ever thought about playing. And so, and if those that don't know what I wrote, I was thinking about there was a murder of um, George Floyd that everyone saw this video of by a police officer. And I thought about what it means to protest in this country because I thought about a previous thing. All these things kind of keep happening year after year, decade after decade, publicly. And I immediately went to the concept that when people say what's bad in the world, that there is this other side that says they shouldn't be complaining. They shouldn't complain or protest, or it's somehow really bad or un-American, unpatriotic to
Mm,
protest, to say what's bad in the world.
mm,
And I was thinking about that, and I was like, that doesn't seem right to me. It seems like that the spirit of freedom, the spirit of liberty, the spirit of what as growing up as an American, the American dream should be about expressing the beauty of that freedom to do so. And so I wrote that piece, the statement that you can read, that everyone can see. And I was thinking, oh shoot, this is really interesting. There are also people that say, uh, against this, of this movement, this hashtag movement, Black Lives Matter, that's somehow like really negative. It's like against everybody else. And um, and then I was like, wait a second, but what they're talking about is that is that yes, all of humanity matters, but when people are being murdered you know, on live TV broadcast out there. And then people can't say, wait a second, maybe we should examine this, or maybe we should protest, or that maybe we should love all people by saying Black Lives Matter. Then I was like, that's not really fair, is it? That's not really what America is about. That's not really what America stands for. And so all of that statement, I mean, you can read it again. I don't have to go over that again. That's what that was about. And then I was thinking, okay, if I say this, everyone says, oh, you're being political. You should just play the clarinet. You don't, need to, talk about issues in the world, which
mm,
I have an argument with anyway, because we're all political. We all have emotions and thoughts and cares about humanity, and it's okay to talk about it. But I was like, somebody's gonna say, shut up and play the clarinet, you know. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I should play the clarinet because that is my voice that most people hear and the one I'm
mm.
most comfortable with expressing through. And so that's how the video happened. I was actually just going to take two knees um, because years ago, Colin Kaepernick, this football player who was kind of banned from the league, knelt down on one knee to protest peacefully in a football game, and it was a huge controversy here in the states. And I was like, well, we need to take two knees, because that people think that didn't work. Let's take two knees and see what happens. See if we can affect some change this way. And I can use my clarinet, and people can use their music and their art or whatever message they can to peacefully stand up for what's right. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how that
Yeah.
started.
Well, I want to yeah, I'd like to share some of my reactions to all this. I mean, first of all, I know you didn't want to go through it too much, but the one paragraph I'm going to see if I can get up here. I thought it was. I mean, everyone is calling this, touching or powerful and stuff. I just think it's so clever. I mean, you seem to. There's so much divisiveness really worldwide going on for several years now. And it's just like, anyone who's ever been on social media will someone say, oh, it usually ends in name calling and unfriending, and that's it. And you just sort of kept on bringing it down to a lower denominator to include people, instead of instead of just sort of saying, oh, that's silly and this is my thing, are you with me or against me, kind of thing. So towards the end, you're right. Now we don't have sports to distract us, and we're mostly at home. Now's the time to protest. And now you already nip it in the bud in a way. You say, can we say that all lives matter and Black lives matter as well? Or how about now? Or maybe the best thing to share is care about Black lives. It's pretty innocent, and I love that you just, people seem to just get into one detail, let's say, and then that becomes the controversy. And you just kept on lowering the bar, to the point any reasonable person couldn't disagree with what you were saying. And it was never a shaming thing. It was never, those people kind of thing. And it really, it struck me. I thought it was just clever. I mean, that's just the word that came to mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
Andy. What?
No, go on. I wasn't sure. Yeah, go on.
Oh, okay. So there's this thing called empathy, right? That I think we're not always able to express or actually think about while we're having these like internet battles with each other. We're not able to see each other. We're not able to be there in the room with each other and feel the humanity of the person we are fighting against, or the person that we think we disagree with politically. And it's very easy for us to be in our separate places and then see someone on TV doing something and say, that person is one of those bad people, right? And I hate those people. And what happens is that we lose a sense of empathy for them, like they are our family members, like they are our human family members. But if we actually immediately saw them as our brothers and sisters, or as we are family, we have a clarinet family, of course, and every one of those we're all watching this show. But if we actually saw almost every single being on the earth as a part of our family, and we were empathetic to the pain that they are feeling, then most of us would think, oh yeah, of course we should support those folks that are being heard all around the world in different places, for different reasons, right? And so it's that kind of openness that I am looking for, that because that seems obvious to me, that most people can get behind that. And like you said, when people get distracted by the word used or the phrase used, or, oh, but those people are those people, what it is it's an excuse to actually cut off all connection with them in an empathetic or sympathetic way. And that is what I was trying to do in that message, is just to like explain it in words that made it very easy for people to see what does that empathy look like. It just means that, okay, if this is the excuse for not supporting this movement, what if the hashtag was this? What if the hashtag said this? Would you support it then? Because often you'll see that the folks that have a real problem with it, it's not the problem with the hashtag. The problem is our own bias. The problem is our own prejudice, and that's what's actually really hard to look to see. Is that you might have a problem with caring about everybody, as you say.
Mm. Well, I thought I'm going to move on to the Alec Baldwin interview and the Copeland concerto. And I might say, I don't know if you have the same lights, but you're looking healthy and handsome as Alex said. So you would have hurt my feelings if you didn't pay as much attention, for me. But anyway, but I thought I'm in this interview. I just see fate coming in is so much, and I believe in fate. I don't know about you, but I thought, like you mentioned earlier today, and I've seen in other interviews, that this misconception that if you want to improve something, you're unpatriotic, or you're the enemy, or love it or leave it kind of thing. And like you were talking about, it's like you actually love it. Okay, this is your family, and there's a problem in the family, and because you like it so much, you love it so much, you need to address the dysfunctionality. So when you did the Copeland concerto, I read up, you read up a little bit on Copeland, and I thought it was incredibly appropriate, because when we as classical musicians think of Americana music, I mean, he's probably the first, or one of the first people that come to mind. You can't write more American music than Copeland, but he had like the beginning of the concerto, they call it his bittersweet lyricism, that because he was gay at that time and he felt ostracized, and so he always carried this. He felt a little bit of an outsider, and sometimes the African American side to his music, apparently he felt a kinship with African Americans as a Jew, and he referred to both of them as the other Americans. So, like, you're American, but you're not quite in the club. And this is how he felt. And my impression is this is exactly related to your to a lot of the message that you're putting through.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think in so many ways, if we examine our own challenges in life, right? If we examine, everyone has their own roadblocks, their own barriers, their own insecurities, their own difficulties with where they came from, how they got to where they are. They've all had to struggle, right? If everyone, instead of pointing out exactly why we're all so different, and we kind of thought more about what makes us similar, what makes us, what have you faced that I've faced that I also have trouble with, and why is that? And if we all kind of came together more about why things are the way they are with our struggles, we'd be able to recognize pain and struggle in others, right? And there would be no other, right? Of course, we're all the human race, and everyone knows that, but we all like to separate ourselves, right? If we didn't do that, and we said, you know what, your struggle actually is my struggle as well, this is what would actually create change in the world. And it's that change, that shift in thinking about one another, that could actually help us all to kind of move forward and actually make progress. It's just the continuous denial of the connection with others that makes us makes inequality in the world, frankly. And just the kind of thinking about this concept a little bit is really helpful. But if you're uncomfortable with thinking about it in the first place, then it becomes really difficult to like create positive change in the world.
Yeah, the other thing is, I was reading, and I never knew this. I mean, I'd heard a little bit about Benny Goodman, and sometimes they weren't always positive things about his personality. But apparently his jazz concert in Carnegie Hall was very inclusive in a way. And Lionel Hampton, who African American played with him, he always said he was a huge champion of equal rights. And I thought this was a great quote: "The harmony's better when the white keys play with the black keys." And that's a Benny Goodman quote. And to put this in perspective, this was 9 years before Jackie Robinson was they were trying to put the baseball leagues together for who might not know that. And I thought, wow, I mean, this is just couldn't the stars just aligned perfectly. For your movement and the Copeland and Betty Goodman and all that. It was just great. So what I'd like to know is, I mean, my observation again is, you were so frustrated. I mean, they had taken basically the ability to play music with your colleagues for an audience. You basically had your clarinet and your iPhone. You didn't know what was going to go on with your future. I mean, there were about 100 things wrong going on. Or you were out of your comfort zone, okay? And all of a sudden, they lay this on you again, and like, oh, here we go again. Another racial brutality, etc. And this was a reaction because these were your words. You felt helpless and hopeless. Okay. Now I'm going to go out on a limb after seeing the kind of attention, and I'm going to say maybe that you turned this weak situation into something incredibly powerful. And I mean, this actually applies to this show, because this is really a lot of what we're trying to show, that even under the circumstances, to say that you turned lemons into lemonade is a huge understatement. I mean, is it correct to say, I mean, perhaps you've reached more people with an iPhone and a few bars, in your living room? Maybe you reached more people than you did on a huge New York Philharmonic tour, sold out, over 2 bars. And it must actually feel, you must feel a little empowered and surprised in a positive way.
Yeah, I was really surprised and completely. It's hard to put it into words how moved I was by all the people reaching out. But I mean, it's like over more than 250,000 views or something, probably higher now. I have no idea. But yeah, I think lots of people connected with it because we were all kind of feeling the same thing. We've all felt that kind of helpless and hopelessness at some point, and especially during this COVID crisis, that we musicians, we enjoy performing, we enjoy communicating. It's a part of our being. This is why we all become musicians, is to play music. And part of the reason I did this is because I was thinking a lot about why we do what we do. All of us, we don't go into music because we want to make lots of money, or we don't go into music because we want to like have some sort of like fame or something like that. None of that, when we're 12, 11 years old, none of that really matters, right? So when everything stops, when the music stopped and the world took a pause, I had to kind of grapple with exactly why am I doing this, and I had to remember, and I did remember. And I'm definitely not one of the like negative people that gets in the orchestra and like, I hate playing music, and it's like, no, I've always been super positive. But this period was super challenging, because then I'm not playing, going from 4 concerts a week, teaching every day, all day, to like nothing, and so that's really hard, to lose your sense of expression. And so to see people connecting with that message in that way, like I said, that that empathy, that that in that way, compassion, a compassionate way, was really beautiful. I'll tell you something else. Truthfully, especially those first few days after I released this video, and there were many more people posting videos of tributes is that I could not get through one of them without crying. I was tearing up at every single video, and I watched almost every single video that has come up of people doing their Take Two Knees tributes, and I couldn't help it because what it was saying to me is not only we stand with you, with me personally, but they were saying that we stand with justice, we stand with equality of humankind. And that's a really powerful thing. That's a really broad thing. So my message is just an individual one from an individual player, right? But what we try to do as musicians is we try to reach people, right? We try to communicate, we try to express um, love and passion and sadness and all of these things. And then to see that come back as a mirror to not just me, but a mirror of humanity, especially in our small music world, was kind of breathtaking. And that communication, and even now, as I've challenged again for people to make tributes as a fundraiser that I'm doing personally, it still moves me so much to see so many people understand what we're trying to talk about here. And it's just don't get me to cry on this interview if that's
Oh, okay. Okay. We have a mutual promise then. um, well, I maybe extrapolate, or maybe you've answered the question, but in previous interviews, you did say you've been asking yourself, between the social problems, the political problems, the health problems, all these crazy problems we have, why are we musicians? Okay. And we can get a little more tangible. I'm wondering, have you figured it out? I mean, first of all, why are you a musician? But further, what's the role of a musician? Okay. And what's the role of a musician pre, during, and hopefully one day post COVID? Okay. And I'm always tying this in with a little bit, the essential workers and all this kind of stuff. So I want to hear your take on this, because I know you've been thinking a lot about it, and we all are, I think. So, we'd really like to hear that.
Yeah, I think I'll preface this with saying that I don't have the definitive answers for anything like this philosophical question, but just thinking about my own opinion of it and thoughts about it, I think it depends. Actually, it depends on what you think about your own voice, like what you think about your own sense of expression, right? So if we think about our music making and our clarinet playing as a tool of communication, right? That's a very simple area to go to, which is that I remember when I was younger, like maybe 13 or 14, I had this possibly naive view, but actually um, really sensitive thought that I would love to have music change the world. My music change the world. I would love to reach as many people playing really beautiful music and um, and change people's hearts or move people right around the world. That I really believed that music has the capacity to um, change hearts, change minds, and also shift humanity to a more beautiful place, right? And this actually reminds me of this interesting um, scene after I was playing one of the New York Philharmonic's youth concerts, and we performed a piece we had this young composers group, and they're like 12 or something, 11 or 10 or 11, 12. And one of the girls who wrote this beautiful piece and sang her own piece, her own work, had a little interview after with the conductor. And he introduced her, and he's like, bravo, and the beautiful music, and we have the whole orchestra. We're sitting behind her, and she's like, he's like, so what do you want to do? What do you think about the world, state of the world? And she's like, I hope for world peace. And it was interesting that the audience, a lot of adults, some kids, they all giggled. There was like this audible like laughter every night that this happened, right? She said, I wish for world peace. And I thought, after I giggled a little bit, I thought, why are we laughing? I was like, this girl has it right. Like, isn't that what we actually should be hoping for or wishing for, and all of these things? And it actually was a mirror to our society, our world, that we're so cynical. We're such cynics, and we're so negative, frankly, as adults, that when you're a child and you say you hope for world peace, that a whole audience of people goes, yeah, right. Maybe just think about it. What if we all actually wanted to use our music and our little clarinets for world peace, or for justice, or for equality of the sexes, or for what do they call it? Food insecurity, which used to be called starvation, or any cause in the world that would make the world a better place. That's a really interesting concept. And so there's this thing that if we think about where we are as musicians, we usually think we're very focused, right? We think, I want to play the best Brahms I could possibly play tonight. We're very like, our view is it myopic, I suppose it might be the word, or it's very kind of focused or narrow. That's usually what we do as musicians. I'm gonna nail this solo. I want to have a great read tonight. I want to play all the right notes. I'm gonna do this. It's very like athletic, and we kind of have to be like that too, right? But it seems interesting if we were to consider something a little bit greater as well. And I think that's something to talk about. And I think, this quote always comes up, the Bernstein quote about playing music more beautifully. And I think, some people think that's like kind of a negative, I don't think so. I think what I interpret that to say is that as musicians, if we made music for something greater than ourselves and said so, that I think it could help. Like what doesn't help is the cynicism and the laughter after one says, I want world peace. That actually doesn't help. And basically the all of our instinct to not do anything, that doesn't help either, right? Mm-hmm. So like I said, I would rather be naive than not want to do anything ever. Mm-hmm. And we can't have these, honestly, 5 months ago, in the middle of my schedule, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't have had the time. I wouldn't have had the time in here or here to do it. And that's like for most of us in our whole careers, right? We feel we have excuses. We make excuses for why we can't do other things. So, in a way, this time was actually really great for me because I was able to think about, what am I doing? And act on something that was more valuable maybe to the world.
There is a lot of fate. 20 minutes before this interview, I posted the Bernstein quote on my timeline. You can
really?
See it.
I didn't know that.
The Philippines has had a very bad situation today, I guess. Today or yesterday they had a vote on basically doing away with a TV station, which has an orchestra and so on, because the news wasn't really agreeing with what was going on, and they've just done away with it. And I have some friends that are pretty upset about it, and I just said, I mentioned that, and they thought, wow, that's pretty cool, and we're gonna do that. So that's great. Let me continue with Fate. Okay, so you and one thing we do have in common, we're both U.S. Open tennis supporters, right? Yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
Unbelievably, I mean, I don't even know how this happens. Just literally within 12 hours, CNN on their website just has this article on a black tennis player who wasn't hugely famous. I know who he is. His name's Malavi Washington, and he was talking about black. Of course, now in the women's game, there's so many wonderful players, but in the men's there really wasn't. And he's talking about if there were other people that looked like him or this kind of thing, and how it would inspire him. So I have two quotes from that I thought were interesting. He says, a young black boy who's 5 years old, 10 years old, can turn on the TV Saturday or Sunday during any college football or pro football season, and he can see a ton of players that look a lot like him. Guess what? That's his guy, and that's who he wants to be. That's not necessarily the case at all with tennis on the men's side. But he did meet early on. There was the last black Grand Slam winner, Yannick Noah, and he was asked to warm him up. And what he did say about that was, but the experience of seeing other players that look like him succeed also had an impact as a third person, noticeably Frenchman Yannick Noah, who won the French Open in 1983. So he was asked to warm him up. And the last thing he says about it is, you could see his head and his dreadlocks and hear that French accent above the crowd walking towards me. We exchanged a few words. He said, I heard you're a promising young player. Good luck. It was a very special moment for me. And Malavi is the last the last black person of any country to make the finals of Wimbledon a long time ago. And, I've been following little by little some of your past. I mean, this is a very prominent movement right now that you're doing. But little by little, it seems like you've been doing social activism for a long time. And please correct me. I always sum things up, and all my guests tell me that I'm completely wrong. So don't worry about it. I'm thick-skinned by now. But my impression was, you're playing your clarinet. You're doing this. Okay, you're aware of all this. And didn't you win you won a human rights award a while back, I think, with Gloria Steinem and this sort of thing. And what I remember is you were sort of saying, like, how do I belong amongst these people? And people convinced you just because of how you look in a prestigious position in classical music. That's enough. That's actually something. And it seems like you've actually kind of were thrown into it, and you're walking the walk and talking the talk and you're going for it. And I just thought, I don't know if there's actually some kind of parallel to Malavi Washington, but I'm just wondering, do you see yourself as a Yannick Noah to someone else's Malavi Washington, or was there a Yannick Noah to your Malavi Washington?
You're really good at this, Andy. Like this is so great. You're really great. I've only seen like a couple of these videos, right? Like you're really great. You're really great. Always compliment your interviewer, everyone, by the way. But in any case, yes, there were many of those folks in my life. And so let me just start from actually what you brought up there, the Justice Award, which is very interesting because I haven't thought about that in a little while. And you're right. When I won that award, I had insecurities about it. I was like, as always, I'm like, oh, I'm just a clarinet player, right? So, but I think you are right that the what I represent to so many people and to so many the next generations of clarinet players coming up to is something that is greater than myself. And um, and I see that in a lot of places. You know, I give a lot of master classes all over the country, and I meet young kids all the time, and I, you know, of all different colors, but I meet you know, young black clarinet players all the time, and when they tell me that, you know, I saw you when I before I picked an instrument and I picked clarinet, and now I see them performing on stage like these great artists that they are, and it is really shocking to me and moving that I had that effect on someone, you know, and and so at the Justice Awards, which is also interesting, is that I got to go to the one after mine as well, and I'm invited to them every year at John Jay College. And I think yeah, the one that I was on was Gloria Steinem, and if and either the one right before or right after, or the one I was on, Brian Stevenson won a Justice Award. And for those that don't know, he's the top civil rights lawyer in the country. And at the time, this is really interesting, just to show you how up on justice rights and civil rights and everything I didn't know who he was until that night, and I heard him speak, and I dove into what is this man doing, and you know he's a great American hero. And now, of course, we have the book that he's written, just and the movie that's come out, Just Mercy, and I've read books by one of the people he got off of death row in Alabama, and and you know, it's actually really, really, it was that those moments that you say change you, right? That you're saying I was thrust into some of this stuff, but I also am thrust into, and this is where politics meets the person, is that as a young black boy on the south side of Chicago, the you're thrust into the movement of social justice, whether you want to be or not. You're thrust into the movement of equality or the lack thereof, whether you want to or not. You know, you can pretend to walk around like you aren't where you came from. But from the time I was born, I can't hide who I am to the world. So just by that representation of me going through life and trying to achieve and work hard, I represent um, that movement no matter what. People can try to deny it all you want, but that's what it is, right? And so that's what I mean. It's not politics for a lot of people. It's people um, regarding all of these movements that to move through the world as a black man, especially in a field that is does not look like him, you become an activist even if you don't try to. Like this is, you know, I don't even have to talk about it for people to know and to think about it, what that means, you know. So that's just a part of, I can't try to separate myself as a clarinet player from who I am as a person. But I want to, you want to jump in? Because I want to continue that thread a little bit.
I do want to jump in with something because it takes me right to my next question. I have a big weakness. When I start talking about tennis, I can go on for hours and everyone's going to turn off. But I have one more tennis related thing, and Lorenzo will elbow me if I get too carried away. But in the U.S. Open, okay, the biggest tennis court in the world is called Arthur Ashe Stadium, who was before your time, but you know, I remember him very well. He was someone a hero of mine, if you will. And you know, when you talk to his opponents now, I mean, he died tragically in his 30s. You know, they always recognize he had two kind of battles. You know, they were just worried about winning a tennis match, but he confided actually in his autobiography that he understood the more he won, the more his social activist voice would be heard. So my first question is, does this apply to you in any way? But secondly, I'm just fascinated as someone who can't relate. I can relate to a lot of what you said, but I can't relate to this next thing. You're wearing it beautifully, but is there a part of you, I mean, compared to any other clarinetist in a principal clarinet job, and that's hard enough, I can tell you that much. And compared to a lot of African American people, you're in the spotlight, and like you said, they threw you in there. Do you ever feel? I think you enjoy the responsibility. I think you're doing a good job with it, but a great job with it. But do you ever kind of wish you had a break and you were just kind of like, like some other schmuck in the orchestra? I mean, do you feel like you're always being watched and you've always got to cross your T's and dot your I's? Do you ever need to you just want to be like some schmuck like me playing in an orchestra?
Yeah, I see. I see what you're saying. I mean, no, I mean, I think, look, there are so many things in the world that that you can feel like are a pain, right? This is not one of them. Like I said, you could complain about a lot in the world, but actually having a platform and having people want to listen to what you have to say can be, just recently in the last month, it's been a lot, to handle, right? And it would be hard to, be playing, 5 concerts a week and teaching 8 hours a day and still doing all of these interviews and doing all this talk about all these talks and stuff and all of these things. But as far as like wanting to represent Black people in America and wanting to represent Black people on stage in America and talk about why there aren't what are the barriers to entry and all of these things, that is not a burden. This is like, I'm grateful to be able to be here doing what I'm doing. So for instance, when I was a kid and I thought of someone like Wynton Marsalis, I didn't know him, but he, like you said, with Arthur Ashe, people like that. These are heroes, and we need our heroes. We need our people to succeed and be successful and be in that spotlight so they can inspire the next generation of all people, to like really do well at their craft and to change their world, and this is why I don't think of it as, obviously that's not a negative. I know what you mean though. I think there could be a lot of weight, right? There could be a heaviness, but there's always been a lot of weight. And I was just talking to my brother about it. I was like, look, we didn't grow up in a place where we were allowed not to be positive and not to try to be the best. We didn't grow up in a place where if you were just some Joe Schmo, that you would succeed, because the odds are so against you that I was saying to my brother, we don't have to be ashamed to stand up for what we believe in whenever we do so publicly, because we've been doing that our whole lives by working as hard as we worked to get to where we are, frankly. That we have fought by practicing all of those hours, by staying focused and not getting distracted by the news or what's going on in our neighborhood or people trying to say bad things about us, that we've had to not be just chilled out, because that's the way that we have gotten to where we've gotten, is by actually putting those blinders on and working really, really hard to dot those I's and cross those T's, and to do that. And, I imagine that folks like Venus and Serena, folks like Wynton Marsalis, folks like Arthur Ashe, all of these people that we talk about in these, in these heroic ways, the work on the ground that they do to achieve those heights is almost necessary. It's almost like it's required in order for you to know their names, and that is work that is on the ground with a clarinet in my hands all of these years, So it's not like, oh yeah, that was just thrust on me. That part was really like just with and my brother's inspiration growing up. He had one goal, and that seemed to me, as his younger brother, to be the best flute player ever, and to like and to move people and to tell his story emotionally and beautifully and expressively. And that was my early inspiration, um, musically, to do so. And I saw how much time it took to do so. So that was really interesting. So I just want to mention another wonderful story about the Justice Awards. Let me go back to that.
Please.
Is that I saw, so Brian Stevenson spoke, but another one that I saw was Elie Wiesel. And he gave the most amazing speech. And once again, I took out my phone and I took notes while he was speaking, because what I was hearing, what I was witnessing, was so powerful. And he talked about how much silence is the enemy of humanity. I remember this. He talked about how everyone who knew what was going on, we all know what was going on, and we all stayed in silence, right? During World War II. And it actually, now talking about it now, right now, I'll talk about fate. It reminds me of something I was talking to someone about recently about, and that's another reason why I'm supporting the Equal Justice Initiative, is that they're bringing attention to lynchings in America, which we just saw on TV, of course, with George Floyd, but that how many people throughout our time, or throughout the last 100 years, 200 years, kind of set back and didn't say anything when they know that there are bad things like that going on, when there are people dying. And Elie Wiesel was talking about this silence as being a real evil in the world. And this is hearing those words come from him did change my life, not so many years ago. Another person, that changed my life recently was a man who was Dr. King's lawyer, Clarence Johnson. And I'll tell you a story. And I said I wanted this to be only an hour, right? So now I'm talking, I'm going on and on. But
I'm glad you brought it up. We completely understand. You're very busy during this time. You've got a family stuff. Give us a time limit, and
no
15 minutes.
What I'm saying is that I'm always that guy. Let's keep this rehearsal really short. Let's not talk too much. And I'm always the guy like that keeps talking.
People that way.
It's really great.
Talk, man. Talk. Come on.
Yeah. Sorry. So Clarence Jones. Sorry, Clarence Jones, not Clarence Johnson. So I was playing a concert in California a few years ago in Music at Menlo, and this man, I go backstage and the presenters are like, "There's this man that wants to meet you. His name is Clarence Jones, and he was Martin Luther King's lawyer." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" So I go backstage. There's this tall. There's this tall black man standing back there with his wife, and he shakes my hand. He's like, "Hi, I'm Clarence Jones," and he's like, "You play really beautifully," like blah blah blah. And his wife takes me to the side after he's talking to someone. She's like, "Do you know who this man is?" And I was like, "They just told me." Anyway, I go back home. Go back to the house I was staying, and I look him up, and I realize he's the man that snuck the letter out of the Birmingham jail when Dr. King was imprisoned. He was a speech writer for Dr. King on some of the famous speeches that we all know and love. And guess what? And this is what he told me backstage. He was a clarinet player.
Oh no.
And he went to Juilliard. For a summer. So fast forward 3 years or 4 years, and I'm um, in a meeting at Juilliard or talking to Damien Wetzel, the president, and Ara, and they say, Ara ran into this somebody in the string quartet, and they talked about they were doing a project with Clarence Jones, and Ara was like, and he went to Juilliard, and Ara was like, I have to get him to Juilliard. So Clarence comes to Juilliard, they give him an award, and I play for him, and we meet again, and I say, we met, and I'm the clarinet player you met in California, and I'm a professor here at Juilliard, and he connected, and he was like, oh yeah, I remember you. And then we hosted him for 2 days. He gave a talk. I gave a beautiful speech, and he hugged me, and it basically changed my life, because what he did was connect the dots in a way that the social justice dots in my mind that had never been connected before, as myself as a clarinet player, having a connection with Dr. King, that it kind of brought me a degree of separation from one of the greatest world changers the world has ever seen to me as a clarinet player in New York. And what it brought in, and this just happened months ago, just before COVID.
Wow.
So I think it changed my sense of what was possible in the world, to meet this clarinet player turned lawyer, turned Dr. King's lawyer and speechwriter, and world changer, to hear him speak about what people need to do to change the world, which is vote, by the way, which is all about power and voting. And to hear him talk about racism in America and changing the world. And this was a man who was a lawyer in LA in the 1950s, a Black man. So talk about, and I thought to myself, I have no struggle compared to what this man was able to accomplish, and to think about it with that perspective as well, that we've all come a long way. And he was saying that we are so far away, that he's like, this is a man that worked with Dr. Martin Luther King, and he's saying we still have a long way to go. And so that was so inspiring, and that just happened a few months ago.
Well, so I'm actually curious. We don't know what's going. I mean, here in Hong Kong, we were kind of ahead of the curve. We were doing well. We just started live concerts. Bam! We have now a third outbreak. The last few days, things are closing down again. I mean, we thought we're going in one direction. Yeah, the States is a whole different story. Just we don't really know the future. But has this COVID experience and all that means for you, has it changed you at all? Or do you think it will change you? And in what way?
Oh yeah, I think it has, for sure. What it is that we go, we play, we do all of these things, right? And we always say, oh, I wish I had more time. I wish I had this kind of time. And what it has done, it is that sometimes that the closer we get to, and it goes back to your original point, from pain to progress, kind of, is that sometimes when we get closer to pain, or we go through it, or we struggle with something and we go through it, that on the other side is something better, something that has progressed, something that has changed. And I think for a lot of us, maybe this time has done that. It's given us time to really evaluate what we're doing with our lives, what we actually can do with our lives. I'm thinking about you. I mean, I'll ask you a question. Is this the first time you've ever done this kind of thing, these interviews and things?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, how amazing is that? How amazing is that? That that you've gotten to share this.
Mm.
You've used your pain and your pause to change lots of people's lives by offering them such amazing conversations with people that you're friends with and that you admire and all of these things. And it's that sort of thing that, yeah, that has definitely changed your life, has changed my life. And a lot of us are going through experiences like that. It doesn't have to be big, it can be small. But um coming, and I feel this is really interesting, is that I've told people this and it's kind of, they think it's funny. But I frankly feel like I've come closer to death than I've ever come, right? With this whole crisis. I mean, New York was it was hit really hard, right? And the fear and the worry, and most people that you talk to in New York are like, oh yeah, I got kind of sick, I didn't know what I had. Most people in New York, and maybe lots of people around the world, have also experienced that, because we've been so close to this, you know that we all frankly thought that, a lot of us, but I'll just speak for myself because I'm a hypochondriac, thought that this was it, and I still am worried. I'm still trying to be very careful because I'm worried about it. And it's amazing to see people say, oh, I don't know anybody who has it, it's not a thing. Well, you know what? It is a thing. There's so many people that were affected by this, and so it has changed me. When you're standing outside on your or inside on your balcony at 7 p.m. every night, clapping for healthcare workers, like you think, oh well, this can't be 2020. Yes, it is. It feels like it's 1918, right? Because supposedly lives were more vulnerable then, but that's not true. Lives have always been vulnerable, but we've thought of ourselves as being totally invincible for so long. So those of us who have had like a relatively healthy life, that when we come close to when we see the world shut down because there's so many people that are struggling and losing their life and going through this pain, that has changed me forever. So hopefully I'll try to continue to do.
Well, like Anthony, often with my guests, we have slews of well-known clarinet players and what they and I'll shout out, but I'm not going to do this time because while you were talking, just it makes me feel better, and it couldn't have been done without you. There's a African American, I'll call her girl, who is a high school classmate of mine. I haven't seen her in exactly 40 years. Not a clarinet player, not a musician. And I've contacted. Maybe I've gotten one message from her. She said her son's a band director. A couple of years ago, and I said, you know what? I just out of nowhere, I just contacted her. I said, you need to hear this interview, and she's on here. She's just loving it. I haven't. So we love you, Donna. Thank you so much for validating everything that Anthony's just said. It's made my day completely. So I thank both Anthony and Donna for that. So I want to just again, these are my observations. You can knock me down. This whole thing started as a reaction, in a way. Okay, like all your expression was taken from you. As you knew it, as you in your comfort zone, it was taken from you. All you had was your iPhone and your clarinet and four walls kind of thing, and of course your immediate family, but you were separated from the rest of your family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I mean, just like this show, and things have evolved. Okay, so where is your movement evolving to? Has it evolved? I don't think it's just a reaction anymore.
Right. I think, after the first week where I saw the response to it, I knew it had become something, it had become a thing. And with all things that I've never done anything like this before, right? I've never had a social media movement go viral or anything like that. And it becomes a little bit bigger than just me, because all those people are involved. Everyone's involved. That Around July 4th, I kind of wanted to kind of kickstart it again, right? It's not really going away. In other words, that because also with this sort of connection with the community, the problems haven't gone away. So the meaning behind the movement and the reason for the statement and the piece hasn't gone away either. So I feel like I have to continue it. So I did another piece and another challenge. And at the end of it, on my birthday, which is coming up next Friday, I believe, we're probably going to have raised $15,000 probably for Equal Justice Initiative, at least something like that. You know, through generous gifts, yourself being one of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
And extremely generous. And you know, so I don't actually know because I've never done anything like this before, but I do know that I hope to try to involve more people, more organizations, more foundations, maybe start one of my own, or help others find a way to contribute to good causes that they believe in. But mainly, I think it's been an amazing thing to kind of explore in my own sense of how I can connect with people and help people stand up for what's right in the world. So to answer your question, I have no idea. But actually, I want to mention something as well. The amount of amateur musicians that have contributed to this movement has been inspiring. Professionals, teachers, everybody. It's been across the board. And that's what's really special about it, I think, is that, as I said in this most recent statement, this movement is for everyone. It's for everyone. So I ask you, you know, for instance, everyone watching today can do a video, and Equal Justice Initiative gets money to support, you know, all of these things. People are always like, what should I do? You know, Anthony, what do you think of practical things you can do? Well, that's one thing, that within the next week, everyone on here can make a video, and, you know, money will go to the Equal Justice Initiative. And that's just a simple thing. That's what I mean about finding ways to see what's obvious. Sometimes we look for like what's so difficult to do. Like I have to change people around me. I have to do all this other stuff. But sometimes the obvious thing is the low-hanging fruit, is that you just grab it and you can help. You know, you can do something.
You know, I just wanted to share. I'm gonna pour out my heart now to the world, and you know this. In my own experience, you know, we here in Hong Kong, we have our own set of demons going on, and part of most of what I'm doing is interviews, but I'm also trying to make videos showing some of the beauty of Hong Kong and stuff. And as you know, I mean, a lot of Asian people in the Western world have not had a very easy time in their own right, and you know, all part of all this stuff. So I thought, like, yeah, I'm sympathetic to what Anthony's saying, but you know, this is sort of, I'm doing my thing right now, you know, and then I actually have some Black musician friends in the UK, and they started posting stuff about what it was like for them. And I just all of a sudden realized, look, this is all of our, it's all connected. It's all the same thing, you know. But now I had this dilemma. Okay, I asked you to come on the show. I've known you. Everyone's made these videos. It was a thing. What am I supposed to do now? And actually I was thinking about it because sometimes we go into rehearsals and my brain's working. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if I did a little different video with this person and that person? And it was just excuse after excuse, you know. You know, very justified, but it was an excuse. And then the videos came, and then you come, and I on my social media, I'm like, oh no, here he comes again. He's gonna make me feel guilty, right? And you come up with the you know, very inclusive, just as inclusive as that first post that I said I was so impressed. So instead of, you know, you terrible people who didn't part, you know, it was just like, you know, everyone's different. You know, maybe some people are embarrassed to play, maybe they have their own things going on, but you know, now we're going to get a little practical. You know, money never hurt anybody. We're going to do this. I just encourage you, just whatever you, I mean, if you're a person who's hit by this awful situation, fine. If you're, you know, you want to make a video now, you're embarrassed before, do whatever, but just be part of it. And I'm like, oh my God, he's forgiven me. This is the thing. I always feel like you're talking to me personally in all your writing. That's why I think it's just so clever. You're communicating with the clarinet, but the way you talk, it's very powerful, actually. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. So I actually made my peace with you. I say, I came clean. We did a donation, and in a way, a very, very small way, but this is for the benefit of people listening. As someone international trying to participate, Facebook had a, would you like to donate? And I pushed on the button. They said, I'm sorry, some countries can't do that just for a thing. And that's why I contacted you. He said, is there a better way? And now you've tweaked the website, making it friendly for all international people. So, you get this feeling like you're leading it, but all of us we're all contributing in our own little tiny way. We're all trying to get involved. We're all trying to do it. And we can tweak it to make it easier for one more person to do it. Great. So again, my compliments on having this uncanny way of just writing a couple of captions and, always inclusive, never judgmental, and it's remarkable because all I've been seeing on social media for 5 years or so is just, well, you used to be a member of my family, but never talk to me again, you idiot, and that's not what I'm getting from you at all. So, thanks for forgiving me. We've made our peace, everybody. But, and now I'm very excited about it. And by the way, in our conversation, this is the other thing. You're talking about, you're very lucky to do this and everything, but I think you're energized by this. I mean, in our chat, you're just like, man, the world's giving me all kinds of opportunities and I'm so excited. This is so good. I think, this COVID thing has actually energized you. From before in our conversation, you were, well, there's the four walls and I can't perform and what's going on with the job and what's happening in New York and now it seems like you've got this great energy going.
Well, the thing about energy is that every day is different, like this is early in the morning, but I'm feeling good. Well, it's like when you go into to a lesson with a student, it's the last lesson of the day. You're really tired. You're like, you've been working all day. You had rehearsals in the morning. You've taught for 5 hours. You're so tired. You're like, how am I doing this? And then 1 minute into that lesson, what happens? Or 30 minutes into that lesson, as you exchange some thoughts and ideas with your student, and your student plays something, and you talk, and you're communicating, and you're growing because you're giving something that you actually receive when you give, And I think that's what's given me life during this period, is that before I was just sitting and thinking about myself, then I was depressed and sad and bored and anxious. But the cure for all of those things that I just mentioned is gratitude, compassion, and empathy, and communication. Is that as soon as you think about others, as soon as you think about either the healthcare workers that are out there giving their lives, or you think about the people going through terrible things that are struggling and being strong just to try to get off of the ventilator or whatever, or you think about all of the people that are also trying to provide food and try to keep the lights on in their families, or you try to reach out to others in your family or friends that you haven't talked to in a long time and say hello to them. As soon as you give, what you do is that you receive, and you receive that energy. And that's kind of like the spirit of love. That's the spirit of connection that actually can feed us when we are like hungry, basically. And I think that's what you're seeing, is that, look, not every day it's not like this, I mean, there are a lot of days where I'm still depressed and it's dark and it's hard, but then there are many other days where you're like, I'm glad I woke up to do this talk with Andy, for instance, because you gave me something, you know? And by talking about all these things, I received that energy from you for allowing me to get up here and talk about them. But I received that energy from everyone looking and watching, but also just feeling like we were talking about something that may have helped someone or may have inspired someone. That is what gives me energy every day to do anything. Is that kind of that energy transfer there that is really, really pretty powerful.
Okay, Anthony. For the first time, this is the 10th interview. For the first time, I'm stuck. Okay, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. I sometimes I have questions and stuff, and they I put them aside. It's just the right time to stop or whatever. And I know you've got a busy life. We've talked a lot about the movement, which is fantastic, and it wouldn't be a bad thing to just wrap it up and talk a little bit about that. Or would you like to go a little bit into, which seems very almost embarrassing? We can get into a little bit of the clarinet and use the clarinetist.
Yeah, can we do that? Maybe if we could condense that, like
You
yeah,
got
because
it.
I'm
We're
feeling a little antsy too. It's like, we could have like 10 minutes, a solid, like, whatever, just
Okay, I have a better
play
I have
on.
a better I have a better idea, because it's like I call these are jazz solos. Okay, if we did this in 10 minutes, it would be a different length and the conversation would be completely different. But it's just right. It's a great solo. Okay, so this is what we're going to end with. Um, as a teacher, no, okay, I'm going to stick. We're going to have two things, and then we're going to close it. One geeky thing. Okay, I know that you're a committed teacher, and you, as you said, you give master classes, blah 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 blah. I want to hear what are some of the common things, clarinetistically or musically, in your that you always gravitate to, sort of commonality things in master classes of players today that you'd like to change, or that you generally change as a rule, of course. Okay, and then we're going to end with, I mean, you're a human activist. You're a high profile musician. Blah 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 blah. Usually, I ask for some kind of advice to young people, and it's usually a little geekier. But because you're doing so much, and Donna Newland, my high school friend from 40 years ago, is here. I want you to just give some general advice, especially in this really hard time for young people, when you're looking at the future of music, and or where they might feel it, I want you to give some advice, either musically and just life advice, and how to get through this, and what you'd like to see them do. So those are two points, and then I'll let you go.
Okay, yeah. So the first one was musical, the masterclass kind of thing. Yeah, I think there are a
Yes.
couple things I like when I'm listening to someone. I talk a lot about air. I talk a lot about how we use the air when we play, and are we using it efficiently and effectively and expressively. So that's like kind of like my number one thing, which I guess isn't like super geeky, but
No, no, it is.
that's one
It
of
is.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that is. Yeah, that would be a big one.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is especially in master classes, because it's kind of a public setting. I don't really get too much into technical stuff, um, but I do like to think about adapting, um, using the weakness that you have with the technique to become a strength, and to do so by um, thinking about it uh, more musically. So changing either the tempo or the way you approach it, so it is not only accurate, but it is more musical. And so sometimes that can be, and people wonder why my tempi are sometimes too slow. That's probably why, because I'm trying to like compensate and play something more musically and slower. So that can be a real big help for some that where we feel like we can't really get the technique, down. It's often that we're just we have an image of how fast we should play it. Let's like take that out of the picture, and let's try to say, where can I play it? Where am I now? And how can I play that more beautifully? And how can I express? I'm gonna steal something really quickly from my brother. I heard a talk of his, and it was really brilliant. It was great. He said, if you go to an audition and 90 out of 100 people, 95 out of 100 people are there so they can really play really well. So they practice all the technique and they've done all this stuff. What's going to make you different from all of those people? Nothing, right? Because we're worried about everything being perfect. But he says he likes to get his students to think about, what can you do to play more musically, more beautifully, more connected than everyone else, or as much as you can, because you're going to be thinking about that, and everyone else is going to be thinking about this. And so this is what I mean. This concept of just switching it from one to the other, and allowing that to help you become better, technically, and or musically, or both, combining them. That's a really, really valuable thing. So the other thing I talk about in master classes or in lessons is what the tongue is doing for the tone. So getting students to experiment with different tongue positions to create different sounds and different voicings, so we can find the sweetest sound that they can have. And it's one thing that I'm always working on and trying to get better at and exploring, and never being happy with. But the air, the wind, the air, and the voicing and the tongue position to help difficulties on the instrument, just help us. Part of playing clarinet, we all have different sounds and mouthpieces and all of this stuff, and clarinets, but the use of those different things can change our sound so drastically, and actually help us get around the instrument very well. When most of us, young players, old players, we have trouble just getting up and down the instrument kind of freely so we can express, right? So, but that usually comes to not thinking about what our embouchure is doing, what our tongue position is doing, and what the air is doing to actually make the clarinet function more efficiently, right? Trying to find what the barriers to getting around the clarinet easily are, and knowing what those are. Like, I know what my barriers are to getting around the clarinet easily, and when I'm out of shape, I know them more. My embouchure gets very weak, you know, and understanding that actually affects how well everything works is a really good place to start. Um, so, regarding everything else for the the young person coming up or what have you, especially during this time, I've been talking a lot about um, how the question I get a lot, I've gotten a lot over the last few weeks, is how do I stay inspired? Right. This is a question that I was asking myself a lot, back in March, back in April, because I kind of didn't touch the clarinet. I was talking to my students for all of those weeks in April, and till the end of the school year, and I was telling them, I'm so happy you're still playing and practicing and touching the clarinet, because I know how hard it is. you know, like, I put mine down. But I would say this is actually a really good time to learn where we get our inspiration from. So I would recommend asking yourself that question, like, where does your inspiration come from? And for me, it comes from music. It comes from all music. It comes from my favorite pieces of music to listen to. It comes from some of those moments where you put the clarinet down and you listen to some beautiful work by a composer you like, or some song you like feeling good in that way. And understanding, and, like, for instance, if you want to be an orchestral player, or like something like that, you've been practicing all these excerpts so much over the last few years. That's all you do. But how many times have you put down the clarinet and just listened to the pieces? Or maybe even look online and get the score and like follow along. You know, like how awesome is that? And what are you missing by not doing that? And that's a really cool place to start, because in this time, it's hard to be inspired. It's hard to be happy, frankly. And so it's kind of a combination of just musically doing that, but also, um, this is funny, is just to chill out. Is like part of being able to like work really hard and to like strive for stuff and set goals is actually not being super stressed out, right? So if you can find a way to actually chill out during this time, you have all this free time, right? We for some reason free time makes us stress out more, but really we shouldn't. And I say this, I sometimes wake up and I'm like, why am I stressed today? You know, I shouldn't be stressed. I don't have to go to work, but I'm like stressed, right? It's because we are like basically too hard on ourselves, that we should actually like allow ourselves to chill out. I'm going to steal from my brother again. He says, know when you need to sit on the couch.
Say that
And know
again.
when, he said, you need to know when to sit on the couch or the sofa, whatever you call it.
Right.
You know, when to sit on the couch and just veg out and do whatever to take care of yourself. And then also know when to get off of the couch and get to work. So I've stolen everything from my brother, but I think that's a really good example of really good piece of advice that I heard him say recently. Is that you have to know when to take care of yourself. And if you're not, you can stress and be anxious about how much you need to practice all day long, but that's not going to actually help you do it. So sometimes taking care of yourself, having fun, chilling out, relaxing, taking the pressure off will help you work more, will help you do the work you need to do.
Sometimes I call it give yourself permission to relax or whatever. It's hard to do, right?
It is. It is.
Anyway, Anthony, you've given us way more time than you expected or we expected. So thank you so much. I mean, it's really been a extremely enjoyable talk. Before we go, we just uploaded not all 9 interviews. This is coming up, and please like our page if you're enjoying these. Andy's Licorice Talk, and we also have a YouTube channel. They've all been uploaded just a few hours ago by our wonderful friend Lorenzo. Anthony, may your movement just continue and evolve and continue to be the Yannick Noah to so many Malavi Washingtons out there. So we look forward to hearing you on the stage sometime, not just in your living room, but amazingly powerful living room iPhone performance. I must say my compliments on turning a bad situation into an extremely productive, powerful situation, and just keep on doing it in good health.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is really amazing. I mean, bravo to you for everything you're doing to give people whose voice is usually blocked by a clarinet a voice to talk to the world. And I feel like you said, I feel like we got to make chamber music together today, and you're doing that, and it's really inspiring. So I really thank you so much.
So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Anthony, thank you so much. And a lot of love from both me and Anthony to Donna Newland.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, everybody. All the best. Bye-bye. See you next week.